My name is Caroline Kotze. I am the founder and Chief Equity Officer at Women in Governance. And I am so happy to have you here today to speak of a topic that is extremely important, extremely hot, as so many things are happening around the world. And to do so, we've got distinguished panelists from all over the globe who have joined us today. But to begin, let me give you some very brief context. According to Amnesty International, worldwide, an estimated 1 in 4 pregnancies end in abortion every year. Ending a pregnancy is a common decision that millions of people make, whether we like it or not. Every year, a quarter of pregnancies end in abortion. The World Health Organization estimates that 25 million unsafe abortions take place each year, the vast majority in developing countries. Access to abortion is one of the most hotly contested topics globally, and the debate is clouded by misinformation about the true ramifications of restricting access to this basic healthcare service. And actually, you may have seen on social media that we tried to boost the ad about this event here today, and we got a message at the last hour from Facebook saying that our ad cannot run because it contains sensitive social issues that could influence public opinion, how people vote, and may impact the outcome of an election. So that's where we're at today when it comes to talking about something so important for women and for everyone in our society. So regardless of whether abortion is legal or not, people still require and regularly access abortion services. According to the Guttmacher Institute, a US-based reproductive health nonprofit, the abortion rate is 37 per 1,000 people in countries that prohibit abortion altogether or allow it only in instances to save a woman's life, and 34 per 1,000 people in countries that broadly allow for abortion, a difference that is not statistically significant. When undertaken by a trained healthcare provider in sanitary conditions, abortions are one of the safest medical procedures available, safer even than childbirth. But when governments restrict access to abortions, people are compelled to resort to clandestine, unsafe abortions, particularly those who cannot afford to travel or seek private care. In other words, preventing women and girls from accessing an abortion does not mean they stop needing one. That's why attempts to ban or restrict abortions do nothing to reduce the number of abortions. It only forces them to seek out unsafe abortions. So without further ado, I'd like to begin by introducing our panelists. One by one, I'll ask each one a question, move to the next person, and so on and so forth. And the last 15 minutes of our event will be dedicated to questions from the public. So Dr. Joannie Bewa, you are, and I'm doing this alphabetically. I may or may not have mentioned this, it's important. Dr. Joannie Bewa, you are an award-winning physician, researcher, and instructor at the University of South Florida College of Public Health. You chair the board of Women in Global Health in 24 countries, and you are a member of the World Health Organization Afro-Expert Group on Sexual and Reproductive Health. You also serve as a board member for Merck for Mothers, a $500 million initiative on maternal health. You and I met on International Women's Day, March 8, 2017 in Ottawa, as we were both sharing the stage with Justin Trudeau at the time to discuss a significant investment that the Canadian government was making at the time in girl and women's reproductive health globally. So you're currently in Dakar and back in New York next week. So thank you for being here with us today. To begin, can you please give us a brief overview of the state of abortion globally, focusing more specifically on the US and Africa, please? You're on mute.
Yeah. Absolutely. And thank you for inviting me to join such a timely and an important conversation. As you know, and if you introduced me, my work really spanned across Africa and North America, specifically the United States, looking at access to sexual and reproductive health, mainly contraception and clinical services, but also all other topics, that ties and have connection with sexual and reproductive health, both in West Africa and the United States. So pretty much what do we know about the issue? So the Guttmacher Institute, reported last year that abortions in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, nearly doubled between 1999 and between the time frame of 1999, 1995, 1999, and the time frame of 2015, 2019, doubled from 4.3 to 8 million. And he also reported that approximately 92% of women of childbearing age in sub-Saharan Africa do live in highly or moderately abortion-restricted regions. But on the continent, the continent, the African Union, adopted a protocol, the Maputo Protocol in 2003, and its articles state that abortion must be legal to save a woman's life and preserve her physical or mental health, as well as in case of rape, incest, and grave fatal anomaly. So since the adoption of that protocol in 2003, 39 out of 48 sub-Saharan African countries expanded grounds on which abortion is legal between 2000 and 2019. But only 15 countries are fully compliant with the protocol, and we hope that there will be more. When I take an example of a country that I work in, specifically Benin, for example, is one of the African countries that allows abortion when continuing the pregnancy will endanger the woman's health. But there's specifically no mention to affecting women's mental health. However, the country allows also abortion in case of rape, incest, and fatal anomaly. Let's look at the United States as well. We know that the Roe versus Wade decision in 1973 gave the legal right to women to pursue abortion care. We've also noticed that this decision has been challenged since 1973 to now. And one of the recent restrictions, and it has been there forever, but one of the main restrictions include limiting access to insurance, abortion coverage insurance, which means that abortion care fees will be the responsibility of the consumer. A couple of states like New York, Washington, California, and Oregon, they do require state-regulated private insurance to cover abortion services. DC and other states have restricted use of Medicaid funds to abortion care only in cases of endangered life, rape, or incest. So this is overall very in a nutshell, because this is a very introductory phase for now, the situation of access to abortion care, in Africa and in the US. And let me close this answer real quick by saying that even though the situations in Africa and the US do differ, because the context is different matter, the two seems to be moving in completely different directions. As the US challenges the extent to which women can freely enjoy their right to abortion, African states are more and more and gradually embracing and expanding abortion care services for their women. But progress still needs to be made.
Thank you. Thank you for these remarks, Dr. Joannie Bewa, very enlightening. Jill Doctoroff, you are the Executive Director of the National Abortion Federation in Canada. You were in the past the Executive Director of the Elizabeth Backshaw Clinic, a community-based facility that provides abortion care. And you also served on the Board of Directors for the National Abortion Federation, Canadians for Choice, and Options for Sexual Health. Can you please tell us if there are any barriers to access abortion here in Canada? And what are the services available for women at different gestation stages across the country? And if you could also touch upon some rural or less accessible regions, please.
Great. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so pleased to be here with an incredible group of individuals talking about a really important issue. I think when we talk about abortion care in Canada, we're often apt to compare it to other parts of the world where there's more restrictions. We're really fortunate here to have a publicly funded healthcare system and to have had decriminalized abortion for more than 30 years. However, the barriers that do exist are really real to the individuals who need to access these kinds of services. And so they include one of the things that you had mentioned, very limited coverage in the northern parts of the province, every province. So most abortion clinics are located within about 100 kilometers of the Canada-US border. So people who live anywhere further than that really have to do some traveling to access abortion care. And when there are abortion services, they're outside of main cities, they're often more limited at the gestation. So often they're limited to the first trimester. And so if someone has a pregnancy that's beyond that, they're going to need to travel to access the care. We also have large regions of the country, so like the Atlantic provinces of Canada, abortion care is only available in that region up to 16 weeks. So if somebody's pregnancy is beyond that, they have to leave their home community at their own personal expense and go to another province. And while their health insurance often will cover the care, people have responsibilities like elder care and child care and jobs that they might not have being able to have time away from. So that's really challenging. And then we also have somewhere like the province of New Brunswick, where there are 2 cities where people can access publicly funded abortions. And the province has decided that any abortions that happen outside of hospital settings aren't going to be funded. So they have to be paid out of people's pocket. So really, small rural and remote communities don't have a lot of access to abortion care, and they have to figure out how to leave their home community in a way that's private and access the care that they need. And for many people, even just managing that process can be really challenging. So that's sort of.
But would they get refunded? Would they get
No.
refunded by the government? Nothing.
No, there's no refund. I mean, there are, some small pockets of programs, and sometimes Indigenous folks might have some ability to have refunds from their First Nations group, but for the most part, no, people aren't refunded. And that's just abortion up to 24 weeks. So if someone's pregnancy is beyond that, they actually have to leave their country for the most part and travel to the United States to access later abortion care. So while maybe compared to other parts of the world, having a publicly funded system and no law around abortion seems like it's, an easy thing to access, but really for many people, it's quite challenging unless you live in an urban center.
Mm-hmm. You're based in Vancouver, Jill?
Yeah, the NAF Canada office is based in Vancouver, and so am I. Yeah. So Vancouver is probably the best resourced city in the country for abortion care.
And that's because your office is there, but do you have chapters across the country? Does the National Abortion Federation have chapters in every province?
So we have a national reach, and we work with abortion facilities and individual providers in every province and territory.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Marianne Farley, you are an actress, producer, an Oscar-nominated director and screenwriter, and I'm proud to say my friend. In 2019, the short film Marguerite that you wrote and directed was nominated for Best Live Action Short Film at the 91st Academy Awards, so kudos for that. Your latest short film called Famas was shared with our audience. So for those of you who haven't seen it yet, you cannot miss it. You've got a link for a free access to this short film about the future of abortion. It's a fiction, but it's quite striking, chilling at times. And please note that the link will expire in 24 hours, so don't delay. Marianne, your movie Famas takes place in the near future in Quebec, following the adoption of an anti-abortion law, where the character has no other choice but to end her pregnancy using an illegal abortion clinic. So what triggered your desire to do this movie on a topic so hot as abortion? And why did you decide to set the story in the future?
Well, yeah, first of all, can you guys hear me?
Very well.
Yeah, you can. Okay, I can't hear myself, but that's fine. First of all, thank you, Carolyn, for inviting us and putting this whole incredible panel together. I've always been extremely passionate about human rights in general, but more specifically women's rights. And a couple of years ago, I started doing research on abortion rights. It's a subject that's always been really close to my heart. And we were talking about earlier that the fact that I didn't know that abortion was only legalized in 1988. I was under the impression in Canada. I was under the impression that, I was born in the 70s. I was under the impression that my whole life, abortion was accessible in Canada. So, that really blew my mind, just realizing that that's like 15 years after the United States. And it's only 35 years ago. So, and during any election like the one we're going through, we keep bringing this and putting it back on the table time and time again, like somehow we're questioning the legitimacy of these laws, which is completely ludicrous to me and very dangerous. So, as I was saying, I was reading up on the subject and watching numerous documentaries like Vessel, which is, Rebecca Gompert's story, and Women on Waves, which was a huge inspiration to me. And films like Reversing Roe, which talks about, you know, the hidden agenda of the far right movement that's been wanting to overturn Roe v. Wade for years, you know, well, since 1973, basically. So, you know, and I think I wanted in a way to sound the alarm and say, you know, we think that these rights are acquired but we can't take them for granted. They could be taken away at any time. And like Jill was saying, like access to abortion is not easy, even here in Canada or in the United States, you know? So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a filmmaker. And I felt really passionate about this subject. You know, I felt a deep calling to talk about this, talk about abortion rights. And as I was saying, sound the alarm, because we're not safe here in Canada from, you know, what is happening in Texas right now could, I think, you know, happen here in Canada in the next, who knows, in the next 5-10 years. And yeah, I did think about making this story, setting the story in the 1960s or 1970s. But again, because I wanted to sound the alarm, I didn't want people to say, oh my God, that's horrible. Thank God that's over with. You know, for me, it's like, no, it's not. We're not done with this. You know, it keeps getting brought back on the table, as I was saying. So I didn't want people to feel comfortable. It's not a film where you sit down and you enjoy the ride. It's really, abortion rights are important, and, you know, they are threatened time and time again. So, and one of my favorite films is 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days by Christian Mungiu. It's a fabulous film, incredible film. And it's set in Romania in the 1980s, where an abortion takes place in a hotel room. It's a really troubling film, wonderful film. And I wanted to tell a different story. You know, it was really important to me to tell a different story, because a lot of films have been made about abortion rights. So yeah. And the one thing that really stands out to me about what is happening in the United States, but also in Canada, is what I see as being extremely dangerous is if we start chipping away at these laws where you know, one day abortion is legal, and then, you know, the next day it's like, oh, well, it's legal until 15 weeks. And then, oh, it's legal until 12 weeks. And now it's like the heartbeat law. And, you know, it's just, that's where we start losing, that's where we start losing our rights. And, you know, there are no laws that control men's bodies, you know, that's the reality. And if we keep talking about gender equality, then we have to talk about women's health issues and giving women access to abortions, because that's, you know, there is no gender equality if women don't have access to abortions.
Very well said, Marianne. And to actually speak about the whole legal context of the situation, we've also invited a very well-known lawyer, Anne-France Goldwater. Hello, you are a TV personality, you're a radio personality as well. You and I share the mic regularly on the Big Five at CGHID with our friend Elias Makos. You're a Montreal-based family law lawyer, and you're very passionate about the topic of abortion rights. And I've just before we were live, found out a little bit more of the context of your own family that I'm sure you'll share a little bit later on. That makes me understand why the minute I wrote to you and said, do you want to do this? You said you had me at hello, and the rest is history. You've been involved in some of Quebec's highest profile family law cases. I think most Quebecers will remember the highly publicized Lola contre Eric. So my first question to you, Anne-France, in 1988, the landmark Canadian Supreme Court R versus Morgenthaler held that the provision in the Canadian Criminal Code, which made abortion criminal, was unconstitutional. Can you please give us some context?
Sure, I'll give you context. You had to go back to pre-Confederation, prior to 1867, to understand why a group of men, white men, no women, because women weren't persons then, got together. They were from the British Isles or from France. So Aboriginal peoples were excluded, people of color were excluded, Jews were excluded, got together and entered into what we call a marriage of convenience called Confederation. So it was an English Protestant group and a French Catholic group. And there lie the source of all the problems that still plague us today. And one of them was, of course, reproductive freedoms. In a short period in between 1969 and 1970, thanks principally to Pierre Elliott Trudeau, that's when abortion was decriminalized. And it all happened at the same time as we obtained civil divorce in 1970 and civil marriage at all the same time. And what Trudeau did at the time, because from the Catholic perspective, I don't have to tell you what abortion is, it's viewed as murder of a child. He decriminalized the provisions of the criminal code that apply to all of Canada by saying we're going to have a hospital committee to which a woman can apply to have authorization to have an abortion. And if for reasons of her health or that of the child, she should have an abortion, she will have an abortion. I don't have to tell you, in a place like Quebec, that was immediately very liberally interpreted, but that was the law that was challenged in the Supreme Court in 1988. And if you ever wanted to do yourself a favor and understand why women are freer in Quebec and in Canada than anywhere else in the world, and we have a lovely Dutch colleague who's with us today, and Holland is my favorite country in the world, but our freedoms are the most protected here. It's when the Supreme Court had this to say about abortion. And remember, our Constitution was new in those days. We're not Roe and Wade. We had a Constitution freshly minted on April 17th, 1982, to which Quebecers seem to object and have an allergy to this day. Here's what the Supreme Court had to say. The right to liberty in Section 7 of the Charter guarantees to every individual a degree of personal autonomy over important decisions ultimately affecting her private life. Liberty in a free and democratic society does not require the state to approve of your decision, but it requires the state to respect them. A woman's decision, I have goosebumps already. I cried when I read this then, and I cry to this day. A woman's decision to terminate her pregnancy falls within this class of protected decisions. It is one that will have profound psychological, economic, and social consequences for her. It is a decision that deeply reflects the way a woman thinks about herself and her relationship to others and to society at large. It's not just a medical decision. It is a profound social and ethical one as well. And then they went on to say, because it's a huge decision, I only read you a couple of sentences to say that the hospital committee has no business interfering in the decision of a woman upon the advice of her doctor and in the intimacy of her relationship with her doctor to make her decision about her body. And look how long it took us in Canada to affirm this. 6 years. We only had a charter for 6 years, and we were given absolute and total freedom. To this day, in Canada, unlike everywhere else in the world, a woman has an unfettered right to abortion, and the state pays for it. It's part of free and essential medical care. So when I say to you as women that we are free here in Quebec and Canada, and I add Quebec because of the social values of the equality of women here too, I am telling you, if I could give a plane ticket to every woman on the earth to come live here and leave her husband behind, swear to God I would.
Anne-France, do you want to share briefly your own family story?
Sure. Both my parents were attorneys, may they rest in peace. I lost my mother, who grew up in Neuilly-sur-Seine in France, so you don't get more French than that. And she came over to Canada with my father in 1947. That's when she emigrated. My father grew up here. And she became a lawyer with him in 62. Because she was a working woman and a lawyer, she had given birth to me in 1960, she didn't want to have more children. So when she became pregnant again, she wanted an abortion. I would add, and this is publicly known, that she had become pregnant by her maître de stage, which means the lawyer who was her mentor in the law firm when she was a young lawyer. And he was a married man and a very, very well-known public figure in Quebec. And she wasn't going to have the child bear the child that was the result of this extramarital affair. As a French woman, she said, abortion is no big deal. A woman is free. She was a young lawyer. And in France, you can have an abortion essentially at will. What is this primitive place where I am, Quebec in the 60s, that I can't have an abortion? So she had an abortion illegally. And as a result of that abortion, she fell, and quite immediately, into a deep depression. And I don't know why, because no one has ever spoken about it. And within a few months, she killed herself. And that was on September 25th, 1963. And the way I look at it is the restrictive laws prohibiting abortion are what killed my mother. First of all, you're not going to stop a woman from having an abortion, even if she has social status, as she did as a young lawyer, an income of her own, marital status. She could have hidden it, right? The laws protect, all laws protect a child born in a marriage, even if the guy who slipped the juice is somebody else. The presumption in all civilized systems and in all religions is that the husband is the father. So there was no pressure on her of any kind, but the fact of not being able to have the support that women have today killed her. So this is why I fight for reproductive freedoms, which I will do until my dying breath.
Such a moving story, Anne-France. Thank you for sharing. Now moving on to our Dutch friend. Yes, Anne-France is asking for a visa to your country, I think sometime soon. Dr. Rebecca Gompertz, so you're based in Amsterdam. You're the founder of Women on Waves and Women on Web, providing reproductive health services on a boat in international waters to women from countries where abortion is prohibited. Your documentary Vessel is available on YouTube for anyone interested to see it. And as I was mentioning earlier, Marianne Farley and myself 2 weeks ago or last week, I can't even remember, were at my cottage watching it. And it was quite an extraordinary story of the trailblazing work that you and your team have been doing. You, in 2013 and 2014, were included in the BBC's 100 Women. In 2018, you founded Aid Access, which operates in the US. You're a trained abortion specialist and activist, and you're generally considered the first abortion rights activist to cross international borders. And last but not least, you were included in Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People in 2020. Thank you for being with us today. Dr. Rebecca Gompertz, what got you to be so passionate about helping women in countries where abortion is prohibited, and what are you the most proud of?
Well, I think what got me passionate is that the moment that I was trained as a doctor, I did an internship in Africa, and I really met women that were suffering due to the lack of access to safe abortions. And so the more you know about this topic, the more it goes under your skin, because it's such a medical safe procedure, whether it's medical intervention with abortion pills or with surgery. And so the suffering that this caused is it's a social injustice, because it's always the women that don't have money, that don't have access to information, that are affected by the restrictive laws. So for me, it's really a cause about social justice. I come from a social justice perspective. I think what I'm most proud of is the fact that, for example, with Women on Web and Aid Access, that we have been able to set up a system where all women will be helped, no matter whether they have money or not. So there's the women that can afford to donate, they donate. The women that cannot afford to donate, they get it for free. And they're both sustainable services. And it's really based on trust. So the whole, in our DNA, it's trusting women or pregnant people, I must say. I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit old fashioned, but I try to better myself. So pregnant people, that it's about the trust that this person will be able to manage an abortion themselves. I think what is interesting also about the film is because I've been working on abortion now for such a long time, for 20 years, and medical abortion with pills has become such a revolution for women. It really makes it possible for women to take their own lives in their own hands. The World Health Organization is also supporting self-managed abortion till 12 weeks now. And that means that it should be over the counter. There shouldn't be a doctor or a nurse anymore. Women should pregnant people should be able to go to to any drugstore to buy the medicine needed so that they can take control of their own bodies. And especially now, because most people know that they're pregnant already really early. The most people that I hear and see, they know the moment that they miss their period or even before. So they can actually, there's no need to make this such a controlled service.
And so this medicine, can you say the name of it? I don't think it's called an abortion pill. It's got another purpose.
I make it. It's mifepristone and misoprostol. So mifepristone is the abortion drug, which is blocking the hormone to keep the pregnancy intact. And then the second tablet is misoprostol, which has been available already for much longer. It was registered for protection of the stomach in the 80s. And it is also by itself, it's effective to cause an abortion.
So these are pills that women, even in countries where abortion is illegal, can actually go buy because they can pretend it's for something else?
Well, yes, but I mean, everybody now knows that that women use it for an abortion, but it's also used, for example, for the prevention of heavy bleeding after giving birth, for postpartum hemorrhage, and also for the treatment of spontaneous miscarriages. So it has many functions. It is an essential drug according to World Health Organization, as is mifepristone. And in some countries, the medicine is easily available, like in Mexico, for example, but in other countries, it's extremely hard to find it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Going back to Dr. Joannie Bewa, can you please share with us how restricting women's choice is actually a threat to women's rights and health? Joannie, do you hear us? You're on mute.
My apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So to answer your question, let me just start really quick. To answer your question, let me start really quick by sharing a specific context. During my teenage year, one of my best friends who was living in a single parent house, she has a disability. She's a teenager. She got pregnant, and living in a single house family without her mother, but with her father, already exposed her to kind of not be aware about, where to have information about reproductive health, but also, if ever she gets pregnant and decided to have an abortion, where to go. So let's say 14, 15 years old, she did an abortion illegally, and then she died from it. I'm sure if she was able to locate a provider to have a legal abortion in a medical facility, she will still be alive today. She will probably be either leading her own company or working in someone's company, but she will be able, to have a family if she wants to. She will be alive. She will be economically independent. She will be able to participate, etc. Why am I sharing that experience? Because restricting women's choice is not just a threat to women's rights. It's not just a threat to women's health, but also a threat to women's entire empowerment, from her economic empowerment, participation in society, participation in politics, and beyond. So women's access to reproductive health, sexual reproductive health, but specifically abortion, is a basic human right. Let me repeat this again. It is a basic human right that has been acknowledged and accepted and approved and proclaimed by various international organizations and international mechanisms and framework. Therefore, restricting women's access to abortion is just and simply, as has been said by Anne France and others, it's just a simply violation of her human rights. And having these basic human rights violated opens the door to violate other rights that she had as a girl, as a woman, as an individual. It's really also important to see how, limiting women's access to abortion, most of the time, who make those decisions? And we live in a patriarchy, situation where patriarchy is society where patriarchy in some settings is, who makes a decision about, women not having the ability or being, prevented from having access to abortion? Policymakers, most of them are, if not the big majority, are men. So it's also a way, of allowing patriarchy to control women's own decision about her body. And I think this, for me, it's something that still now till today, I don't understand how my body's business is a government business or a politician business. I do not understand, and I don't understand how millions of girls and women still have to deal with that perception. I also want to focus on some vulnerable, women who are in certain settings less likely to have access to abortion services. And it's a double threat for those type of women, immigrants, those who are in countries where they might have legal migration status, but they are not yet citizens. So they are legal immigrants. Those who are illegal immigrants and still do not believe or trust the medical system. Women from low economic status, women in underserved underserved area, for example, rural area, but also women who have not been, in an environment where the unique rights have been protected. This is in a society or in countries or in regions where the unique rights have been protected. Do you know that in some settings, and I don't want to mention any country, that when an abortion is performed and is deemed to be legal, the woman can go to jail, the provider can go to jail, and any other person who supported or was part of that will go to jail. Plus, the woman will be required to pay, up to $2,000, the equivalent of $2,000 US or CAD. So that's how unbelievable the situation about restricting women to make her own choice about her own body. So really, to sum up and come back to your question, because I've already answered, restricting women's choice to have access to reproductive health, to have access to abortion or any other type of services regarding to her sexual reproductive health is not just a threat to her right, but it's also a threat to her physical health, her emotional health, financial health, mental health, emotional health, and beyond.
And to think that this is happening in countries like the United States now with what's happened in Texas, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But coming back to Canada, Jill Doctoroff, can you tell us if there are any issues in terms of training opportunities among healthcare professionals that could in turn limit women's access to abortions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing in Canada and probably in other parts of the world, like a bit of a graying of people who provide abortion care. And most medical schools, nurse practitioner programs, midwifery don't have any or very limited amount of information around abortion care in their curriculum. And if you think about a family practice physician or somebody else who's working in a primary care setting, it's very likely in the course of their work that they're going to run into somebody who's got a pregnancy and who wants to access abortion care. And this lack of information really doesn't prepare them to come up with a way to help them come to a decision or help them get the information they need or the access and services that they need. And there aren't any programs that also provide hands-on training. So if somebody is in their residency and they're interested in it, they actually have to make the effort and figure out how to get the training that they need to later become an abortion provider. And I think it's, an issue that we see that I think it was Marianne who mentioned that for many people, they haven't thought about whether abortion is legal or not and how they are able to access it. And that's often why we see some of the older providers who are around when they were caring for people who had illegal and dangerous abortions. They remembered what that was like and how important it is to provide abortion care. And I mean, it's kind of exciting that we have a whole new crop of physicians who are graduating at a time where abortion's always been illegal in their lifetime or been decriminalized in their lifetime, but it also maybe doesn't then give them that urgency to get the training that they need on their own.
Well, is there something that can be done to reverse that?
Well, so NAF Canada, our organization, created a medication abortion training program for primary care folks. And then because of the pandemic, as a bit of a silver lining, is we converted that to a web-based program. So really it also deals with the people in rural and remote communities who often can't travel to a conference or to a day-long training session. They can do that as a web-based format with access to some experts for questions. So we actually launched that in the spring of this year, and it's been wildly popular. So we're happy to be able to play a small part in addressing a gap that exists.
Well, thank you. That's great. That's wonderful. Marianne Farley, what were the most difficult moments while you were making your movie Famas? And how did you feel when you heard about what was happening in Texas recently?
Wow. I have to say, well, for me, first of all, the most challenging moment is always writing. And I think with a subject like this, it was even more challenging for me because I was trying to find the right balance between giving out the right amount of information, and making the film as moving and captivating as possible through my main character's eyes. So, I also didn't want to be too preachy, which was really difficult, while exposing the horrors that, of these laws. Because, as you can see in my film, I don't believe that bans like the Texas abortion bans are pro-life. I hate, I can't stand I never say pro-life. I always say anti-abortion, because those decisions are, first of all, they're hypocritical, they're like anti-human, they're misogynistic. And, that's, for me, that's one of the messages I wanted to get across is it's okay if you're not comfortable with abortions. You don't have to like them, but it should not be like a personal or religious or philosophical issue. It's a human's right issue and it's a women's health issue. So, and as we've all been saying, is like women are going to get abortions. The only difference is, will they die from those abortions or will they survive? And that was for me, that was like the important, that was the important message I wanted to get across with my film.
Yeah, and we do see the character in your movie struggling during her own abortion, and so there's a moment where we worry about her health and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And France Goldwater, I want to get into the more legal aspect of what we've been talking about, the Texas. We've been saying Texas, and just to give a bit of context, so about that recent change to the Texas law, if you could tell us what will be the consequences for women, and what seems to me even more crazy about this law, which is called the Heartbeat Act, I believe, is that anyone found to aid or abet illegal abortions, or abet, thank you, can actually be sued by any citizen. So the state is transferring that responsibility and turning citizens into vigilantes. Can you tell us about that?
I surely will. We, the Summit of the Affirmation of Civil Rights started in the mid-60s and unfortunately seems to be long over. We live today in a very dangerous world with a rise in populism, and that populism is dangerous for people of color, people of minority faiths, and most and worst of all, women. Why? Because it's easy to oppress women. That's the history of humanity. And the people who are these populists, we don't have to go as far as Donald J. Trump. We could also deal with the CAQ here in this province, the Francois Legault, Frank Legault, I call him Frank now. They know there are rights out there. They know we have fundamental freedoms. So they have to be very creative when they want to take them away. Do you understand? This is what's so nefarious about Texas. All right. And it's something they're trying to do here with language laws, but we won't talk about that today. We'll talk about abortion in Texas. It's easy for us to make fun of places like Texas and Alberta because we think of ourselves as so advanced and civilized, but that's also dangerous because I say again, populism can infect any group. And so what did they do? They have Roe and Wade. They say you can't touch the pregnant woman and the government can't touch the pregnant woman. It's like two aspects. The government can't act and the pregnant woman can't be acted upon. So what did they do? Well, they made a law which said specifically declares in the law, the government does not enforce the abortion law. Okay. I have the law in front of me. That's what I'm reading from. I never read newspapers. I read the actual laws or the bills, and everybody should do that. You should go to source material. So the government says, we will not enforce the law. We will not do anything to the woman. But anybody, that's the aids and abets, anybody who does anything, if you suggest to the woman, you know, you do have a right to an abortion, or you drive her to the clinic, or you help her pack some bags to go to the clinic, or here, you're the girlfriend, you lend her a couple of $100 to pay for the abortion. Never mind if you're the abortion provider. I'm surprised they didn't say they would execute the abortion providers. It is Texas, right? You know, where they have open gun. You know, there's a law now. Anybody can carry a gun openly with no permit, no background check. So that means they want all fetuses to be born, at which time you can shoot them. I'm hoping you're laughing. Well, at least I got you with that. But that's Texas. Okay, every culture is different, right?
That's every actually, and France, from what I found out recently, because I heard Nevada now has this sort of same legislation where you can walk around with, exactly. Apparently, it's 20-some states that have that. So it's half of the United States where you can just walk around with a gun without a permit, without knowing how to shoot and do anything. Yet women cannot have legal and safe abortion.
That's why I need everybody listening today to understand why this is so fundamentally a matter of women's rights. Because if people cared about children, as I do, people would make sure there'd be no more school shootings, right? And there'd be no more guns. We would ensure that every child is a wanted child. We would ensure universal health care for children and dental care for children around the world. And when every child in the whole wide world is safe in a loving and safe home, then we could have a real abortion debate. All right? But you can't have a debate when you're going to force women to bear children in a world where they're not protected from conjugal violence and they don't have the assurance of universal medical or dental care, and there isn't an assurance, a protection of children when they go to school that they're not going to be shot by some maniac with a gun. But anyways, let's go back to the law. You understand my picture, my image of this is very holistic, and why I am telling you with all my heart, the prohibitions against abortion have nothing to do with the love of babies and children, which we all share, but have to do with oppressing and controlling women. This is what I'm explaining to you. So in this Texas law, you cannot own anybody. So Joe, Jack, Jane, your local pharmacist, your neighbor, the guy who mows your lawn, whoever can, if he finds out that you're helping a woman in any way or counseling a woman or even talking to a woman about abortion, can be sued for not less than $10,000. It's not for $10,000. It's not less than $10,000. You can be sued. Let's say you're going to give a lift to a friend to an abortion 50 miles away. That person, you can get a court order to prohibit that person from giving a lift to his or her friend to the abortion clinic. And not only is it $10,000 or more, but also all legal costs and attorney's fees. So you could hire an attorney who could charge $20,000 to pursue the suit, and you get it. Now, if you're the person being sued for the evil, terrible, awful crime of lending a friend $300, let's say, I don't know what abortions are in Texas, let's say, and let's say that you win your case. Okay, you win your case. And so no damages are awarded against you. You cannot claim anything from the moron who sued you. I'm not making this up. And the entire burden is on you to prove, let's say it's the case of $300. You thought you were lending it to her to buy a dress for the prom. I don't know, I'm making up a silly example, right? So all the burden and all the terror and all the fear and all the consequences are put on anybody who even helps a woman in the most remote sense to have an abortion. And all that's going to do is it's going to continue to propagate a world. Never mind how many women have abortions on the earth. The question, how many women suffer and die and suffer long-term physical and mental health consequences because their access to abortion has been compromised. And I would remind you again, the men in this deal, because when I looked at the diagram, men seem to be involved in this deal. And the consequences for them are uniformly nothing. I'm a matrimonial lawyer. Let me tell you how much there are no consequences for men. The consequences of the burdens of life and going through life are borne uniquely by women. And much as I love men vertically and horizontally and all other angles, there is an innate and inherent inequality in the and unequal burden of the burdens of life on men and women. And it's time we stand up and said so.
And in France, from what I understand, this law doesn't take into consideration exceptions if the pregnancy is a result of rape or incest.
No, it only says the rapist can't sue the victim. That it says.
God.
The rapist can't sue, but the rapee has to bear the child. And of course, once the child is born, then the rapist can ask for joint custody or access or you name it, and voila.
Voila. I'm starting to take questions from the public, and I have one for Dr. Rebecca Gompertz. Which were the most difficult countries that you went to do your work, and did you ever feel in danger?
So the most difficult country, let me think. So I think that the most challenging country at the time, well, every country is different, and it is a reflection of the situation there. So for example, when we were in Poland, where now recently also abortion got so restricted that you cannot even have an abortion anymore for fetal animality. We were stopped. They wanted to stop the ship from sailing into the port. We were chained. The ship was chained. When we drove in, we were thrown with paint and eggs. The police had to question us every time that we sailed out. The police came and we had to go to the police station to make testimony what we did. And then we said, well, when we were in Polish water, we were just giving information to women, and what we did in international waters falls under Dutch law, so the Dutch government can ask us about that. And that was challenging because it was very tense, the situation. And the last time that we sailed out, there was actually a special unit from the customs that body searched all the women because the anti-abortion groups had filed a complaint that the women were taking the pills home with them. And so, yes, I mean, it was very challenging, and we had personal security there as well. There was a security firm that we rented. But in another country, like in Portugal and Morocco and Guatemala, the government intervened, and they stopped the boat with warships, or they threw out the ship with warships. And so, yeah, I mean, it was always kind of high, tense. The campaigns are extremely tense. Nobody that actually, and I speak for the whole team, we were not scared at any point, because I think we are so much on adrenaline, and we really prepared very well. So we knew exactly what we could do within a law. We always had really good lawyers. I think what was scary in Morocco, that we were afraid that the Moroccan authorities would plant drugs in order to find another charge against us, or in Guatemala for that matter, because these were not really democratic countries with the rule of law. Guatemala and Morocco are autocratic. They're dictators, basically. So it's a police state, and they could do what they did, but they didn't. And I think it's because we are Dutch, and we had the protection of the international press and the Dutch government.
So did you ever get arrested?
No, I never got arrested.
Good.
No, never.
Good.
But I have to say something here, because what I think is very important to understand, it's a tactic of the anti-abortion rights groups to intimidate people and to make them scared. For example, in Texas now, half of the providers started providing abortions because they are afraid. They're afraid of the consequences. And I have experienced that as well, the intimidation that comes from the threat to be prosecuted. And the moment you give in to that, they win. So we have to understand that this is a tactic to intimidate people, to make them scared, to do something which is often within the law. And that is also what happens when abortion is illegal, that it causes self-censorship, because people are already so afraid to do anything, because there is this threat of criminal liability. And even if there's much more leeway in the law, for example, doctors can provide abortions for the health of the woman, for rape or incest or all these things, often they're not provided because they're really scared to be prosecuted. And that is why abortion pills have to be available over the counter, because then doctors are not anymore co-responsible. Then it's the women that take their lives in their own hands. And that has to be facilitated. So I think that is the struggle for everybody that works on abortion rights, has to work on making sure that abortion pills will be available over the counter, so that women are the sole ones that can take responsibility for it, and that there's not a access is never mediated anymore by anybody, not by doctors, not by nurses, not by pharmacists, nobody. So.
Yeah, I think that would be a great step in the right direction. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that when I saw you in the middle of large groups of anti-abortion, seemingly angry, for the most part, men, I thought you were very brave to stand your ground and keep talking back and explaining your views. So thank you for all that you do. Dr. Joannie Bewa, I also have a question from the public for you. What are your concerns about the future for women's reproductive rights and health, whether they're living in well-to-do societies in North America or in poor communities in Africa?
Well, I'm really concerned as a woman, as a Black woman living in America, as a Black woman from African origin and proud of those origin. As a medical doctor and researcher, I'm very concerned about women's right, access to reproductive health, access to abortion care in the world. I'm really concerned the fact that we'll wake up one day and we'll see that, and I really hope this will never happen, we'll notice that, women are significantly more losing the right to choose and make decisions, very basic decisions about our own body. I'm very concerned to see more and more restrictive policies regarding abortion, being replicated in other states, in other countries. I'm really concerned to see the devastating impact that the global gag rule had on access to contraception, being a model for other countries and within other countries. And I'm so concerned to see more and more bans being established on women access to abortion or reproductive health.
Thank you. Let's hope that things will go in the right direction. I think we've all seen that Mexico has decriminalized abortion just a few days after the Texas law. So that's kind of a good news that will hopefully be something that we will see more of in Latin America. Jill, doctor, I have a question for you. What is the impact that misinformation can have on pregnant women who want to access abortion care?
Great, thanks for the question. So in Canada, there's more crisis pregnancy centers, which are anti-choice places that often give out inaccurate information than there are places where people can access abortion care. So when someone who doesn't know much about abortion because they think it's been something that people can access their whole entire life, need to get information, often we go to the internet, and there's so much, well, we all know in so many topics, there's so much different kinds of credible and uncredible information, and there's a lot around abortion care. So I think that when people read that, they get scared, they don't know what to do, and it really impacts their decision. And I think as Rebecca just said, and I think we've all echoed, it's so important that a person who has the ability to get pregnant is the one that's able to make the decision about what to do with that pregnancy. And when you're getting information that you're not really sure of the source of, it can really cloud that ability, especially if you have other elements of your life that might make you more vulnerable or a marginalized individual. It's really difficult. And I think because abortion can be really stigmatized and a taboo topic, people don't hear a lot about all of the regular people in our lives, like Anne France's mom and, whatever, somebody's sister, their best friend from elementary school, their teacher, all of these people who have and do access abortion care, and that they're all good people. And so when they're reading this misinformation, I think it really clouds people's doubts. And in my experience, often those are the people who struggle with their decision afterwards because of that influence. So I think that's one of the big challenges of the stigma around abortion and misinformation.
Thank you, Jill. It's already 1 o'clock. I'll just ask one last question to Marianne Farley before we have to wrap it up. Marianne, what gives you hope when you think of women's reproductive rights and health?
Well, that's a tough question. Well, as we were saying, I think, Ireland decriminalizing abortion and Mexico finding that penalizing abortion is unconstitutional gives me hope. But then again, there are a lot of countries that are not moving forward or even moving way backwards. So I have days where I'm really hopeful and days where I'm really fearful of things that are to come. The one thing that really gives me hope is doing a panel like this with women who have dedicated their lives to helping, women have access to abortion and help, change legislation, which is really key to helping women, throughout the world with these issues. And, the one thing that the last shot in my film really represents the loneliness that these women feel when you're like ostracized from society, when you can't talk to your family, to your friends, when you have to go through this on your own. That's really a tragedy to me. And, getting an abortion is not like an easy thing. It's not, having people around you, getting that support, that emotional support is key, I think, for women's health. So I really, I hope that we're going in the right direction.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. What gives me hope is that the U.S. Justice Department is actually suing Texas over that recent law. So that's what's giving me hope. I just want to thank you all for being such amazing speakers on an important topic. So Dr. Joannie Bewa, Jill Doctoroff, Antoine Goldwater, Dr. Rebecca Gompertz, Marianne Farley, a huge thank you for being part of this. For all the immense work that you do and that you will continue to do. To our viewers, please make sure that you watch Prima, that you watch Vessel, that you keep in touch. Also, share your stories with us. Follow us on social media, womeningovernance.org, and you'll find all the information that you need. Obviously, Women in Governance, our specialty is not anything around women's reproductive health. We work to ensure that we can have more women in decision-making bodies, but there are no free women in this world when some of us are restricted from something as basic as being able to get an abortion. So thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.